We're live! Yay! We are here on my channel. I'm Cassie from MissSassyKassie, and we're live showing about Dreams and Gods of Monsters by Laini Taylor, which is the third book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. So if you haven't read the first two books of this series, probably even the beginning is going to be a little bit spoilery. But we won't go into spoilers for this book until we warn you, so you're good to go if you haven't read this particular book yet. Yep. And I feel like I'm missing something. We need to do introductions just in case. But everybody is linked down below, too, for everybody watching.
Fantastic.
Who wants to introduce themselves?
Will we forget to figure out the order before?
Oh, yeah. Let's do me, Catriona, Red. Sure, why not?
Okay, hello, I'm Kaz from Little Book Owl, and am I talking about what I thought of it as well?
Oh, yeah, sure. We could do, like, star rating and general likes and dislikes.
So I think I've rated this one 4 stars. I took your recommendation and listened to the audiobook, and the audiobooks were really, really good. The narrator did such a good job. And yeah, I think overall it is my favorite in the series. It was very intense, and I really liked the introduction of like some of the the new characters and how that storyline kind of played into it, which we'll touch upon later on in the live show. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty satisfying ending.
I'm Red from Little Red Reader, and I give this 3 out of 5 stars, which I listened to the audiobook for part of it, and I do admit that the narrator did read it very nicely. However, just most of it, and I won't get into my thoughts, just did not resonate with me. However, I relatively enjoyed the ending, which I feel like actually raised the rating a little bit, because otherwise I might have rated it lower.
Makes sense. I actually just finished this in the car on my way home 5 minutes ago. So I haven't like really gotten to sit with it for a reread thoughts like on a rating yet, but I am obsessed with this series. Like it's one of my favorite series of all time, so I feel like it's gonna be a 5 out of 5 star. I mean, yeah, it definitely is a 5 out of 5 star. Why am I even pretending there's a thought process? Yeah, I love this series a lot. This was my first time rereading it, and it had been long enough for this reread that like I still couldn't remember details about this book. So like when certain things were going on, I was still stressed out, and like I definitely cried a couple different times.
Oh yeah. I cried at one point in particular.
Yeah, it was so rough. This whole series is like, well, the second one I think is really dark. And then as far as like my favorite one, I think that this one is also my favorite book because I like the transition from going from like Prague and like being in the human world and it being more of an urban fantasy and then going into Eretz and like having it be like a full fantasy, a high fantasy, I guess. So that knowing that, I think this is my favorite book because we are like most of the time in Eretz, and like the second book is just so sad. So that's definitely not my favorite book.
I think I also like enjoyed this one more so than the second book because we didn't have to deal with Thiago. Because he just made me so angry, and it was like
to the point of irritation, definitely.
Yeah, almost. And it's just the way he treats people is just god awful and like very, very uncomfortable scene in book 2. And so it was nice not to have to deal with him.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was really intrigued by Eliza's storyline.
I loved her story arc. That was one of my favorite parts of the book, actually. Like, I almost wish that there was more of that. I think I would have actually enjoyed this book a little bit more just because I was enjoying her part of it so much. Which also, I find less Susanna, and that made me upset.
That's true. We did get a little bit less of her. But because I think when we discussed book 2 as well, we talked about how or at least I talked about how I liked having those random little snippets from different characters so you kind of get a bit of an outside perspective of what the main characters are doing and the effect it has. And then, so I was like, at the start of the book, I was like, oh, cool, we have a new character. Wonder how this is going to play out. When's this character going to die? Because often it's like, you introduce a little small character and then they die in that scene.
Like
but
to do that.
Yeah, yes, she really did. But yeah, it was really cool seeing like her story and then how eventually it tied into the bigger story. So I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. Who was your guys' favorite character? Like, was it, I think maybe Reg said it was Eliza. Is that right?
Well, I would say in this, I think at the end of the day, like out of the entire series, Susanna is probably still my favorite because she just has these moments that literally make me like laugh out loud while I'm reading, embarrassing myself in public laughing, you know? But as far as like, but I felt like Susanna didn't have as much of like a story arc in this one as she did in the second book. So I feel like I can't put her parts as like my favorite just because she was just so much less present and like prevalent in the story this time. So as far as like story arcs go in the third book, I would say Eliza's arc was my favorite. But on the series as a whole, like Susanna.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree as well, I think. Though I also really, oh my God. What's her name? I was also, no. Sorry, don't mind me. I'm just trying to remember what is from book 2 and what's from book 3. I liked getting to see some more of Lyra's.
I was really, really happy that certain relationships developed that I like hoped for earlier in the series. I mean, I guess since book 2, since one of the necessary characters was not really present in book 1 at all. But like it was something that I'd hoped for like in the last book so much that I wanted to develop by the end of the series. So I was really, really happy when it happened because I was just like rooting for it.
I love Ziri.
Oh, Ziri.
He's my favorite character. He like makes
so
my heart
sweet.
hurt so much in this book.
I love
because,
him
like,
so
he's
much.
Stuck in things. I feel like that was not a spoiler in because it's in the second book, but we'll talk about it later. But like, he stressed me out the whole book, basically.
Oh, I was real stressed out with his whole situation because, you know, being in Thiago's body, and there was instances where it's like, is the power going to get to his head? But at the same time, I was like, I don't think so because he's just such a good character. I think like deep down, he's such a good, pure soul.
Mm-hmm.
There's still instances like seeing him walking around in the wolf's body was like weird.
Even though it's a lot smaller, I kind of liked what they did with the Haxaya arc.
Man, I completely forgot about that. Okay, we need to go into spoilers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I'm having a really tough time talking around things right now because we're in the third book, so it's like, how do you?
Yeah, now is the time. So if you haven't read the third book all the way up to the end of Dreams of Gods and Monsters, or if you don't care about spoilers, then you can stay. But if you care about spoilers and you haven't read this book, bye. Get out of here. Thank you. Love you. Come back later. Bye. Okay, that's the warning. Haxaya, I completely forgot that she was the one that did the scheming for the Laraz scene.
Attack, yeah.
I remembered the Laraz attack, like I knew it was coming, but I was like reading that part where like Ziri in the spot finds out from Liseth or whatever her name is, it doesn't matter. When he finds out from her, I'm like, wait, I thought she was the one that did it, and now she's the one that does it. That's mad, which means somebody else did it. What the heck? And I was so confused. And then it like went there, and I was still shocked the second time around.
But I love how after that they're like, all right, it's fine, we're good again.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, that took me by surprise. I think it was also a case of like, because we didn't really know too much about Hexaya, like she'd only appeared, was it at the beginning of book 3 or at the end of book 2?
No, she didn't really come until the end. I think she might have been mentioned, or she came in at the very end of book 2, and she had like, I think her name might have been like mentioned at some point earlier.
Like about like talking about a memory with
Yeah, there's a
Karoo,
memory scene from Karoo where she talks about when she saved Akiva, and Hexaya is mentioned in that scene.
Yeah,
but it's like literally like a passing mention.
Yeah, so I wasn't expecting that, just because, you know, we haven't had much time with her to really get to know her as a character, and then that pops up. I was like, oh my god,
yeah,
wild.
Yeah, it was rough. It was a rough time.
It was pretty emotional.
And like, I loved getting that scene from Ziri's point of view, because his concern for the fact that she knows the secret, like, so it's this like betrayal on everyone, but then on top of that, it's like, oh, how am I gonna deal with this when I know that she could she has to like, she could tell the secret. And like, once I was in the scene, I did remember what was gonna happen, so I knew where it was gonna end. But like, how did you guys, like, was that shocking for you guys when he like breaks her neck or whatever he does?
Not really, only because like in the minutes like leading up to that, it's sort of like, I don't know what it's like. What choice was he given? If he granted her mercy, not only was it like saving Laraz's life, but at the same time, like, he's still posing as a wolf when everything is probably the most delicate that it could possibly be at the moment, right? Because everything is like fringing on falling apart. They don't have a plan. They don't really get along. Like, they don't have the eyes on the backs of their necks yet to protect them. Like, everything could fall apart right now. And if he doesn't hold up that Thiago appearance, like, Thiago would not have let anybody underneath him live for not only betraying him,
right,
but like doing so in such a big way.
We might destroy all of our plans.
It wasn't a little thing; it was big, and Thiago would not have hesitated.
Ziri really didn't have a choice there.
Yeah, it was such a good scene. Yeah.
I think it also matters that they know that they'd be able to resurrect her, and she already wasn't in her own body. So,
Book Bite Reviews said that I think it was very true to the wolf's reputation, and I agree with that. I guess it was like really fascinating to read from Ziri's point of view, because like obviously Ziri has killed before. He's a warrior, but like he's never had to do it like that.
He was threatening to expose him too. And that would have really made everything fall apart.
She was doing the most, said AJ Reeves. That's funny. I like that. Yeah, man, that scene is so good. I think that's my favorite scene. Like, I mean, obviously it's like a bad scene, but like it's the most intense scene to me.
My favorite scene is when Mick and Susanna are at that like grandmotherly figure for Karoo's apartment.
What a bit.
And things go down. She like betrays them, whatever. And then Mick's like, can I please just go back and get my violin? And he steals all of the, I can't remember, the wishes. Yeah, that was so funny. I was like, yes, Mick, you are a genius. I love you. Also, sneaky. So good.
Like, how did he?
Oh my god! When they wished for her to have like the Hitler mustache that would grow an inch every hour.
Yes.
Oh my god! Can we talk about Morgan Toth?
What?
Morgan.
Oh yeah. He was fun. No, he wasn't. He was horrible. He was a horrible person.
And the thing is, I feel like about him is that he's the most realistic, infuriating. Like a lot of these other people, like they're chimeras. We're not running into chimeras in our everyday life, but damn straight are we running into Morgan Toth.
And I said this to Red actually. I was like, he's a worse Theon Nero. He doesn't have redemption like I feel like Theon does, but like,
yeah, for sure.
He's that character, but so much worse.
Yeah, he did remind me a lot of Nero, whatever his name is. I can't.
Oh,
And I
those
feel like
scenes were
maybe
so
she like wanted to give Morgan Toth a redemption arc, and that's why she wrote whatever his name is. I can't remember.
This is like really like honestly, it doesn't matter to the entirety of the book, but the only time they mentioned Kaz in the entire book, which I just liked, was how it said basically he wanted to start a cult until he realized how much work was involved in starting a cult.
Yeah, at the very
If
beginning.
that does not sum up Kaz in a nutshell, like I don't know what does.
So good. But yeah, that scene where Morgan exposes Eliza and like had logged into her email and sent that those images and pretending to be her was so gut-wrenching. That was so intense. And obviously we didn't know about her past at that point. So then having that all of that unfold, and it was just so much more intense than I was expecting. I was expecting kind of like a family drama, something a little more normal, not like a full-blown cult situation. I was
Yeah.
that was huge.
And that scene, oh my god, that scene with the two, like the scientist that she goes with, and then the other guy was so infuriating. I'm just like, I hate everything about this.
But then there's that part where she literally says, she's like, I don't understand. Did I raise my voice? Like, you know, like, did I do something for them to like not listen to what I'm saying? And I'm just like, if that is like the essence of being a woman, I swear to God.
Oh my God. I was listening to that part on a train and I was just ready to punch somebody. I was it was very, very infuriating.
And at the same time, it's like obviously not that exact situation, but is there any one of us that's never experienced that, especially from a man at some point in our lives?
Yeah, like where they're like, you need to calm down, you're being hysterical. And I'm like,
I'm speaking more calm than you, bitch.
Yeah, what are you talking about? It's so
also,
easy.
even if you do get a little emotional about something, does that like negate any of your points?
Yeah, that too.
It's like, oh my God, it's like if you were trying to tap into like my anger as a woman, you did it.
I know. Well, that's the thing. It's like she's being asked to calm down when they're like completely undermining her and speaking down to her, being really condescending. It's like, obviously that's so upsetting.
Okay, so I found that scene, and it's like they had that nice conversation the night before, and they had talked about God and science and stuff. And there's that quote that she then throws back at him. I'm trying to find the exact word. So she says, I left it all behind, and he says that must have been difficult for you. And it was that stilted delicacy, that patronizing indulgence. And so then she says difficult, and the Big Bang Theory was just an explosion. And she's like, she'd said that to him last night in jest. She'd smiled ironically, and he had chuckled. And she meant it in the same spirit now. But Dr. Whatever raised his hands in a calming gesture.
That's a slap in the face.
I hate the calming gesture. You tell me to calm down, that doesn't make me any more calm, let me tell you. Especially when it's like such a big situation. Like obviously I only can speak from like little experience stuff, but like when you're like accusing someone of something so big, like what?
Yeah,
what?
I know.
And that is an excellent point. Laini Taylor did a great job of showing how women constantly police themselves in order to be able to be taken seriously. Like it seems like they're able to like just talk, like they're able to just say what they have to say, but we're constantly analyzing what we say and how we say it because we don't want to give anything to anybody to utilize and like weaponize against us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like in that conversation, I feel like Laini did a really good job of pointing that out. Like there's this massive hysteria going on in the world because all of a sudden angels and monsters are real, and like they've never seen that, and we know they're real. And then she's like saying that to Dr. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but the one that brought her with him. And then she says, but the idea that I could be descended from one, now that's crazy. Ship Eliza home, get her some help, and for heaven's sake, keep her the hell out of my mind palace. And then she says, and whoever heard of a black angel anyway, and a woman to boot? This must be so difficult for you, doctor.
Mm.
Oh, such a good line. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I'm voting.
Okay, did we all talk about our favorite scene? Mine is definitely the scene with Hexaya betraying and then Ziri deciding how to deal with her, and then what follows that, like him taking Laraz into the bathwater thing, and like
Oh yeah.
the kindling of that relationship. I love it. So good.
I like going through scenes in my head.
I know, there's so many. This book is long.
Catriona, you go first.
We could
I already
also talk
talked about
like,
mine.
go ahead.
I already talked about my one.
Oh,
Mine
yeah.
was with Nick and the violin case.
Oh, that's right.
I think it was just one of the few, because it's also one of the few scenes with Mick and Susanna.
That might
and that's the
honestly be
same-
the same too, because I loved it so much, and I loved like the discussion about what they would use the wishes on.
I know.
Right, and them going from everything from like crazy stuff to practical stuff and everything in between.
I also loved them riding in on a storm chaser, the big animal. I liked that a lot.
Oh, also, what are they called? The Stellians. That whole storyline was very interesting.
I feel like I was going back and forth on that one, because on one hand, like I thought it was really interesting, but on the other hand, sometimes it just felt like slightly out of place. And like I do understand how it like fit together by the end, and I do know that like they've been putting it out there throughout the series, so I expected it to like come together in this book. But there were just certain times where I'm just like, I don't know, I feel like you're just trying to like put it in there sometimes, you know, like, oh, we're running out of time.
I was about to say, I feel like in those instances, I'd wished I'd read the physical book, because I felt like I was getting a little bit confused by it sometimes. Still not entirely sure.
It's very, like, the way that she wrote the Stellian sections were very, like, I feel like ethereal is a good word to describe it. And so it's like, I feel like the way she wrote it, it was very hard to like completely grasp, because like, it's like the way that a myth is written. And so you're like all of a sudden in this weird myth, and you're like, wait, what? This is actual, like, and I feel like the like drastic change in the writing style was shocking every time. So then it was hard to follow a little bit.
And that was the thing, though, is I feel like her writing in this, like sometimes it was all right, and then other times I feel like it just was kind of like lacking for me, which kind of, for example, like you know how there's like the battle scene, and eventually like Akiva and Karoo like escape or whatever, and like Laraz had pushed Akiva away. Like pretty much the scene like leading up to the moment where they got pushed through the portal, I found it extremely difficult to like visualize and follow what was going on. Like I was like rereading it and having a really hard time. I'm like, wait, and I felt like the transition to the battle was so stark that I'm like, wait a minute, we're in a battle. Where did this battle come from? And I couldn't visualize all the happenings within the battle, except for the fact that Akiva and Karoo were being shoved through a portal, and Laraz was supposed to have gone instead. And I knew Ziri was possibly going to die, so I knew some of like that stuff. But like what was physically happening in the battle and the lead up to the battle, I feel like was not very clearly written, in my opinion, which was strange to me, because I felt like in the action scenes in the Strange the Dreamer series, I felt like they were very well executed, and I never at any point struggled to really follow what was happening, what the characters' actions were at any given time. And there were just certain scenes in this book that I felt, even physically reading it, were just a little difficult to follow. Like they were just not clearly written, in my opinion.
That makes sense. For sure. I feel like there were times where she wrote like, there was like a very like normal narration style that she'll give, and then all of a sudden she'll go into this like very like what is it, third person omniscient, like suddenly, and when she does that transition, it like gets hard to follow. where you're like watching from above, I guess. Like you're not in one particular person's point of view. I think that's what.
And it was just definitely like, it's like I understand that what you're trying to do, and I just felt like, you know, and like maybe she just did at this point in time did not have a lot of experience doing those sort of transitions and doing that style of writing, so it came off a little clumsy.
Yeah, that makes sense. It definitely, like, I remember being confused, like what you're talking about the first time I read it too. Like I definitely re-listened to some of the exact scenes you were talking about. When I listened to it the first time around. This time, like, I had a background of like, oh, I know what's going to happen, so it was easier to follow.
Yeah, and I just feel like, I don't know, I don't want to have to reread something like a scene like 5 times to feel like I get the gist of what's happening, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Especially because, like, honestly, like, even though there were definitely parts that I really enjoyed about this book, on the whole, it really dragged for me. It took me probably a full month to read this book because it was slumping me really hard. I was so unmotivated, and I really thought that it was going to, like, I didn't think that I was going to love it, like, this far into the series. Like, I didn't have any, like, grandiose expectations of suddenly falling in love with this book. But I thought it was going to grip me a little bit more than it did, and it just didn't. There were bits and pieces that I enjoyed, but nothing that kept me wanting to keep reading. And it was more of like I was finishing at this point to get to the live show and be able to read something else.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me so sad because I did not want to feel like that, but I just struggled.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, the things that you're saying, like, I understand, like, why, like, I had similar feelings about it, but like it just my overall positive experience overshadowed the things that I also saw in the negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because obviously you can totally love something for 5.
And I didn't actually
like 5 stars, but still have like there's still not everything's perfect.
And I did enjoy the ending. Like even though everything did feel a little pulled together, I don't know, for a 600-page book, like it feels weird to say like, oh, they pulled the ending together like kind of quickly. And
I agree.
just pulled everything together like all at once.
I was expecting, I was just going to say, I was expecting a little more of a showdown with Jael.
Yeah, it just felt like it took so long to get to the showdown with Jael, and it took so long to get to this point where Stelians and Eliza and all these different like storylines come together. It took so long, like 500 friggin' pages to get to these points, and then everything just like happened, and it was like, all right, it wasn't like terribly done or anything, and it's not the like most rushed ending ever, but I'm just sort of like, this is a 600-page book. Couldn't there have been other scenes that you could have like shortened that did not need to be dragged out as much as they were, and like given a little extra attention to just, I don't know, better executing this part? Like, it was good and I enjoyed it, but I feel like it could have, I don't know, I feel like she could have spent a little bit more time cleaning it up, I guess.
That makes sense. I will say we brought up Jael. And man, that scene was also stressful because we find out that the grandmotherly figure betrayed them, and
yes,
I
so saw that coming.
Out. Yeah, that was bad.
Because I was like, literally everything that they've said about her in the past shows she does not have any emotional investment other than what people can give to her.
Yeah. I guess what I mean by that wasn't like that I was surprised that she betrayed them, because also it was a reread, so I wasn't surprised. But I forgot like how it was gonna. I like when they go to the thing and all of a sudden Razgut like turns around and knows that they're there. I was like, oh no. I don't know how this ends. Like I couldn't remember how they get out of it. And
goddamn Razgut.
I know.
Yeah,
I actually liked his like story parts in this one. I found it really interesting, just his learning a little bit more about him and his perspective. Like, I almost wouldn't mind like a short story about him, because I actually found like the extra dimension they gave him in this I know, like
Yeah,
it's not
no,
that
I
I
get
like
it.
him. It's
He's
just
not a likable character. He's a very interesting character, very interesting storyline, but he's not likable.
but like
Yeah.
he's not likable at all. But I like his character, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
I don't
no, I
like
get it.
him.
Yeah, I get
And I
it.
love how he was like kind of thwarting and messing with Jael.
Yeah, I do too. That part was the like. I still hate him, but I was like, at least you're also actually not on Jael's side either. Like you're honestly just 100% on your own side. Is the
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
So, like,
and I did really enjoy seeing him like riling Jael up as well.
mhm.
Like, you can't threaten me. You can't make me do what you want, really.
Yeah, I loved. Okay, in the audiobook, there's that scene. I mean, it's in the physical copy too, but like the way that he voices it, or the way that the narrator voices it, I mean, where Jael is like kind of threatening to kill Razgud if he doesn't do what he says, and Razgud is like, "Peace? What? You can give me peace?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I hate him so much, but like,
You love him in that moment.
yeah.
I love how Razgud ends up attaching himself to the woman.
Yes.
I was like, oh my god, yes.
Wait, what?
The grandma.
Yeah.
He does? Wait,
Yeah.
where was I? What?
Oh, you read this book twice.
I know, I don't remember that.
I know. I do remember that happening. I was like, that's what you get for being so selfish.
When did that happen? Okay.
That was like a
Well,
whole
it happened very quickly. Like, it wasn't in a lot of detail, but it talked about it like briefly towards the end.
Yeah, basically how he like latched it, like I forget what it was, like she went to go meet someone or something and he basically just launched himself at her.
Amazing. I must have been a little bit zoned out in the car
Mm.
and not listened to that. But
I just remember thinking, you're in for a long ride, because she's like used her wishes to live for so long as well. So it's like,
yeah,
you're in for a treat, honey.
and she's having that Hitler mustache grow in
Oh yeah.
for a month.
Oh fuck.
I honestly was surprised when we get that scene where Elazael makes the wish for Morgan Toth first, and she does it, and then she's like, for a month. And I'm like, a month? That's not that long. Like a year, 2, 5, what?
Oh, just too good.
Man. Yeah, there are so many good like little moments, I think, in this story. I think that shows like something Laini Taylor is really good at doing is like giving you these little pieces of like very real like snippets of life. I mean, obviously there's magic and everything involved at the same time, but like I feel like nobody is really surface level. Like we really get into Razgud and Morgan Toth, like he's just some random side villain, and we still get to know a lot about like his personality and how horrible of a person he is.
Absolutely. And like I said, we all know a Morgan, or we've met a Morgan.
Yeah.
You know, also I know I'm like kind of beating a dead horse with this one because I've complained about this pretty much through the entire series, but like every time Akiva and Karoo are going off like, I just want alone time with Akiva, I just want alone time with Karoo, when are we gonna have our moment, when are we gonna be under our special love blanket? Like I'm just like, oh my god, can we just get some blood in here somewhere? Like let's just sleep. I'm over this. Like let's just move on to the next part. Like I don't want to hear your griping.
Man, I was like, just can we get on with it already? Like, can we just get this scene? And like that scene where it's almost gonna happen, and then she sees Laraz's like sad face because she's just wanting Ziri, and I was like, oh, my heart for Laraz.
Yeah. Oh,
that was so like sad and cute all at the same time. It hurt my soul.
I definitely cried happy tears when Ziri came back. I was like in the lead up to that when Laraz was like, I don't know if I have his soul in here. Like, please.
Like, she put it in the canteen and didn't want to let it go. She kept it on her.
It was so cute. I cried a lot.
I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know because what if he's not in there? But he was. I was expecting him not to come back.
Hold on.
To be honest.
Oh, ow, that would have hurt.
I know, right?
Man, okay, so obviously this was a reread for me, right? So when Ziri dies, like when we get that scene where it's talking about like the exact moment that they show Ziri's Kieran body on American or on human TV, and then it's the same time where the thing pierces, like a sword pierces his heart. I was like, okay, I am aware. Like I knew that Ziri came back. I remembered that Ziri came back, but I was like, I don't know how. And so I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. And we get that scene, and I was like, oh, and right as that scene started, I was like, oh yeah, now I remember. So I just was crying the entire scene. It was rough.
Well, I was just super worried because when they do describe that thing with his like Kieran body in the human world, and being like the way that she explains it, like he dies and there was nobody there with a Thurable.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah, and like he said in that scene, or like right before it, maybe he talks about how like he didn't have time to decide on who would be the safety.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
yeah. We were talking about the scene with Laraz and the canteen, and then also talking about like Ziri's death in the White Wolf's body, and like the stress of it all.
I know, and like the thing is, I was like, I knew she couldn't do that to Ziri because she put so much more work into making Ziri lovable and important than even Hazael. Like Hazael, I almost like saw that he could be somebody who would like die only because they made him lovable but not so attached that we would like boycott her as an author, you know?
Yeah.
Like just enough to make it hurt, but not enough to like wound you forever.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Man, but Hazael is still rough to me. Like it's been how many years since I read it the first time? I think 2. And like I've thought about Hazael. When I'm not reading the book, I'm like, damn, Hazael, worst death ever.
I was sad, but like I feel like I'm like kind of over it by now. But I think also because like I kind of anticipated it, you know, and I think that's why. Like I just didn't get super attached.
Yeah. He hurts me. Like
I definitely like. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this is not a surprise, but I definitely was like cared way more about like Laraz and Ziri getting their cute moments than I cared at all about Kur and Akiva getting their.
Oh, that isn't surprising.
Like, I wanted them to end up together at the end. Like ultimately, I wanted Akiva and Kur to end up together at the end. I'm like, yeah, I guess fine, but like I just didn't care about like the moments that they were gonna want. Like I don't know. Their romantic moments just did nothing for me, like at all. You know, I'm like, whatever. You guys are together. Let's just move past it and just say it's done. Like.
Yeah. I'm moving on because we had Book Bite reviews brought up Brimstone, and I have a question for you two. Did you guys think that Brimstone was going to be alive?
Like, by the third book, I didn't think he was going to get brought back. I would have been a pleasant surprise if he did, but I did not expect that.
I agree. By that stage, I was like, okay, I don't actually think he's coming back, but I really wanted him to. Really, really badly.
Yeah, I missed having Brimstone's narration voice in the story because I feel like we got a lot of flashbacks of him in the second book, and this book we had a couple, but not very many. And like, I just love how the narrator chose his voice. So like, I miss his voice more than anything. He was so wise.
I loved what he added to the story, and I don't know. I feel like he sort of, especially with the whole like Kur and Akiva thing, I feel like he sort of kept them kind of grounded in a way. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense, but there was, you know, he sort of kept it. He kind of kept Kur on the ground a little bit, especially when it came to Akiva. And I kind of missed what he not only brought to the story, but what he brought to Kur as a character. And that was just lacking once he passed away.
Yeah, like we get some of that from Issa, and I do really love Issa's character, and like I love the kind of like motherly features we get from her, but like
And I was happy we got
Brimstone
her, but I
and Issa
wanted.
together would have been amazing.
Also, I wish that we gotten a little more from like Yasri. Like we made, I think, or is it Yasri the one that died and Twiga was the one that got resurrected?
Twiga's the one that dies. I think Twiga is the one that dies.
Okay. So Yasri is the one that got resurrected, and that was just like really brushed over. They're like, yeah, okay, we finally got around to like resurrecting Yasri, and it's like, okay, so this is part of your family, but we're not going to give this any attention.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like I felt I feel like I started 5 sentences and didn't finish any of them. Even in the first book, I feel like we get more of a connection between her and Issa than we do between her and Yasri. Because, like, we get a couple different scenes of, like, Issa's the one that, like, waits in the other room with Karoo when, like, there's other people in the room and stuff that she's not allowed to see and all that stuff. Issa's the one that, like, finds her,
yeah,
when she like goes and tries to like run in and she sees the 2 moons and stuff. I'm pretty sure it's Issa, or maybe that's Brimstone. But
I mean, between the two who getting resurrected first, it definitely made more sense to bring Issa back, like because she had that bigger connection with Issa. And it wasn't like I expected a lot of like time with Yasri, but like I feel like it was like mentioned, oh yeah, we brought Yasri back, but like I felt like they could have added a little bit more of Yasri's presence, even just a little bit, if you're gonna like mention how important it is that Yasri also is part of her family that could be resurrected, and then it's like a passing mention, and I'm like, all right, so we don't even get like a nice conversation like, hey, glad you're still around, thought you were dead, it made me sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Man, I feel like emotionally drained reading this story.
It's intense, man.
Yeah. Okay, would you guys say that this story is actually YA or actually new adult?
I feel like there are moments that could maybe be new adult, but I feel like ultimately it feels very like, it's hard because like I feel like the way Karoo and Akiva and how they are sometimes feels a little like YA-ish in the sense that how they react to each other feels very young, right? It reminds me a lot more of what it's like to be in a relationship. Maybe not like the physical stuff specifically, but like, because there were some like more NA connotations in there, but I would say on the whole, their relationship felt very like young, like maybe not like first love young,
but like new.
I would say like maybe like, senior year relationship sort of thing, where you still kind of have that like kind of immaturity to your relationship, but you have a little bit more of an idea of what you're doing, but you don't have that like adult perspective on it yet.
Yeah. That makes sense. I feel like with that being said, like the plot is like real intense. There's like a lot of shit that goes down. So much
there's
like
a lot of stuff that did seem older, and I noticed that from the first book too, even.
Like there is like a lot of like almost gore. It's like close to gore. That's in the book, but then on top of all of that, like the way that the politics are written feels very mature for me. I mean, not for me, but like.
And then we talk about like Giles, like relationships and harem stuff, and like mostly when you dive into like Joram and Giles, like experiences with women felt definitely older, and it was not something that was just glossed over either. Like nothing. And then there was the stuff that happened with Thiago, which I'm not saying that any of it like is not YA in the sense that stuff can't and doesn't happen to people in the YA. And I'm not saying that like people who are young adults should not be exposed to that, because we all know like they're exposed. Like it's the world. So I'm not like saying that, but I would say that some of the ways that had gone about it did feel like it was approached from like a very like mature viewpoint. You know what I mean? Like we were almost given the respect of being able to look at these situations from an adult perspective.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Also, going back to the first book, her relationship with Kaz felt very college to me, even though I know it wasn't.
Oh,
It
interesting.
felt very like college relationship.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just curious because I love bringing in the new adult conversation in general because I'm like, it should exist.
I know, I agree.
Can I just, or when people say that new adults should only go to like 24 or something, I'm like, but then there's this gap between 24 and like, I don't know. Like, I know that people can be married with kids and stuff at my age. Like, I know that that's like a thing, but I just want like a solid genre for like maybe like early 20s and like mid to late 20s. Like, give me some genres in there.
Yeah, like I don't only want new adult to be college either. I want new adult to be like college and what happens after college when you're looking for that first career job. Like it's a hard life.
I want something where there's that in between, like where maybe you aren't married with kids and stuff yet, because there's a lot of like adult books that deal with like women in their 30s and whatnot who might be married. They might have kids. They have this or that going on. But like, what about those of us who are like not really at that college age anymore, but we also we're not married with kids or really ready to be married with kids anytime soon. Or if you are, maybe just married in like a new relation, like honeymoon stage marriage, and we still have no idea what we're doing with our lives.
Yeah.
Because I want some characters that are my age, they're paying bills, and they have no idea what they're doing with their lives. And they somehow make it work. And I don't want it to just be a steamy romance all the time.
Yeah,
Give me some fantasy. Give me some something.
Yeah. Man, this book is so good. I'm so glad I read them again. It was fun. Now we got to read Knights of Cake and Puppets. I feel like that'll be Red's favorite book in the series.
I have a feeling it will too. Like I'm genuinely like, I don't know if I was like super excited about getting to this book. I did not think it was going to drag for me or slump me as much as it did. But I knew like I wasn't going to love it. But like I'm really like I'm genuinely like excited to read Night of Cake and Puppets though, because I feel like it's like all the parts that I liked about this series are going to be put into one book.
It's a good one.
So
I love all of it. And so when I read Knights of Cake and Puppets the first time, I was like, I miss having like all the other stuff at the same time, but it's like still such a good, like wholesome.
I just hope, honestly, I hope it's just really funny because like Susanna makes me laugh so much.
It's also really cute, just saying. It's like super adorable romance.
I don't.
Yeah. Did we talk, like, I feel like we brought up it. Well, if those of you in the comments, let us know if you have any questions about what we thought about specific things, if you had anything. But, like, is there anything that you guys specifically wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on yet?
Also, while they're thinking of questions, it just kind of makes me want to, I mean, to be fair, like 90% of the time, I constantly have this urge to reread Strange the Dreamer, but I like definitely have that urge, and I don't have any time to reread it right now, but like I have that urge.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because they keep bringing up moths and like butterflies.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
Like,
also, I did like that part about how like her study, her like profession was about butterflies, and it actually like ended up being significant to who she is and her lineage. And I'm like, I see what you did there. I appreciate that.
So good. Yeah, I love it.
But yes, I'm like, now that I have like all this knowledge in my brain, and for that reason, that was like, other than you guys were definitely the biggest reason that I finished the series. Like, I'm not going to lie. Thank you guys, because without this, I don't think that I would have finished. I would not. I could tell you for a fact I would not have finished. But part of the reason I wanted to was because of Strange the Dreamer and literally any other book she comes out with in the future of her.
And now you guys can find the Easter egg that I may have accidentally spoiled for the two of you. I'm sorry.
Well, we read the books. We just didn't know how to look for the eggs.
Well, I spotted one of them, but not the other one?
I just remembered something about like the girl with the blue hair, and I'm like, are they talking about Crew?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I picked up on that just because I knew, not having read the series, but it was pretty common knowledge that the main
Did they
character from
mention
Daughter of
the,
Smoke and Bone had blue hair.
Okay, good.
Because I know they talk about gods in Strange the Dreamer. Did they talk about god stars the way? Because you know how they become god stars at the end?
Yeah, I was trying to remember.
Because it felt really familiar, but I couldn't tell if it was actually familiar or not, or if I was just making a connection.
I agree. I cannot. I was thinking about that too. I'm like, dang, did she put that in the other one too? Like, is it even more connected than we already think it is? Because like, I definitely caught the one, there's 2 Easter eggs I think in it that I did catch for sure. But then I was thinking about like the wording of God stars and stuff. I'm like, dang. And I don't remember. I like can't say for sure, but it feels like maybe. I know that they call them the blue people are called Seraph.
The Seraphim or the Nephilim?
Yeah.
Which one?
Yeah, like those 2 words that are very like common angel words in general.
Yeah.
But in Strange the Dreamer, they're also called that.
Yeah,
so
because
like,
I know the actual like floating, Mizarthian building or whatever is a seraph, and I think that they call like Sarai's parents and stuff, like I think they call them seraphim, right?
Yeah, Seraphim.
I'm pretty sure, and like, but I still feel like I don't know if I'm making it up or not, but I really feel like at some point they mentioned like gods or god stars. Like I remember that god star thing.
I know. I want to reread it for sure.
And did they mention anything about like the cataclysm creatures? Because I feel like that could have been an easy like cross-reference mention.
Yeah, I don't.
But I don't remember anything about that. But I feel like maybe like if they would have done it anywhere, I could have seen it maybe getting mentioned in Muse and Nightmares. But I don't remember.
But I'm also I'm also almost 100% sure that in Dreams of Gods and Monsters, you have the 2 teams of 6, and one goes one way through, and one goes the opposite way. And I'm pretty sure that the Strange the Dreamer world is the opposite way of where the Nephilim are.
Well, and that's what I wondered, because there's also the part where they're traveling, and there's like the weird skeleton angel hills, and they talked about them being angels. Like, do you remember there was like the skulls before they got to weep?
How much do we want to talk about this on this live show?
Oh,
by the
yeah,
way?
true.
I haven't read the series.
True. We should move on. Probably. We can talk about it when we get off. Well, I don't think anybody really said anything. They talked about Easter eggs and wanting to find them. But do you guys feel confident that we talked about everything we wanted to talk about?
I think so.
All right. Well, then I think that's everything for this live show. We are going to be doing one more live show with the same group, and we're going to be doing it on Catriona's channel. Probably the second weekend of July is generally what we'll do, but make sure to follow us on @DOSAB Read Along on Twitter, because that's where we'll announce the date and time and all that stuff. And we'll be reading Night of Cake and Puppets. So if you want to join us for that, you can join us by reading that.
Good job saying that without fumbling.
Thanks.
I always have to stop and think about like D-O.
Especially since the book 2, the last, like the middle and the last ones are flipped.
Yeah, D-O-B-A.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
D-O-B-A-S. I'm like, wait, what?
And then you get this one, it's like completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so make sure to follow both Catriona and Red and subscribe to me. You're on my channel. Hey! The other 2 channels are linked down below, so you can make sure to subscribe to Catriona and Red down there. And yeah, that's everything for this live show. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye.